Oh, I can't wait for the album to be out. I think it's my best yet. Well, I hope. I suppose it just, a lot of the aim of it was to keep up my usual ethos of using this thing on more or less anything, so any style that I've ever really got into. So I mean, there's a really sort of straight ahead bluegrass number on there. There's a sort of Eastern European flavoured one again. There's a sort of dub reggae one, there's a slow one, there's a whole mix of stuff. And there's the bookmarks kind of at the start and the end of the album are a set of jigs and a set of reels, and I think that was a definite aim because never really done that on an album before, and it's a big part of what I do. And, you know, people who see me live are used to me doing reels and getting faster and faster, so there's a track, the last track very much does that job. The first track's 3 jigs that I wrote, and they're quite trad sounding in a way. We had a lot of debate over the running order actually, but eventually they were chosen to start. And then track 2 explodes into life, basically is When a Man's in Love. And that's a great old traditional song, it's full of filth, it's wonderful. But John, the bassist, and Ad, the drummer, came up with this kind of dub reggae backing, which I would never have dreamed of, and I thought they were joking, but it worked surprisingly well, and we kept it. And I love the way it just sort of, boom, comes in after track 1, it's great. Definite highlight of the album for me. I suppose we had a kind of I had a jazzy track on Tomorrow's Still to Come, which I quite liked on its own. It didn't quite work with the rest of the album maybe, but I think we've got it right this time. There's 2 tracks on there. There's one called At Least Pretend, which is actually a really obscure old song by the Saw Doctors, but I kind of turned it, I had an idea that it might work as a jazz song, and it seemed to fit really well. And Rachel's harp playing on it is just gorgeous, and Nick's mandolin as well. And then it seemed a bit odd having a jazz track randomly on its own, so we recorded an old tune I wrote called Bread and Butter, which is my attempt at a kind of jazz tune, I suppose. And I wrote a harmony with Nick. Nick does a great job on the mandolin on that one. I think it's good to have the 2 tracks on there. I think they're a real contrast to the rest of the album, but I hope that it still works with the feel of the album as well. The Wise Man is a pretty straight ahead bluegrass workout basically, and I love bluegrass and always have done, and it comes in, you know, and the fiddle does this great note, Christy does, and Banjo does that intro. I mean, when you hear that intro, I don't know, it just makes me feel good. And the words actually are from James Baskett, who I was in a band with when I was back in Stafford, who was in my first band, and he co-wrote Every Day is a Better Day as well, which is off my first album, Tomorrow's Still to Come, which is sort of one of my best known songs. But it was great just to have a really straight ahead bluegrass track on there. It was, you know, it was vaguely discussed cutting it from the album, and I fought hard for it because I think it's great, and I like the way it comes out of something that's completely different. I like that sort of eclectic mix as well. So it's got bass and drums, so it's not terribly trad bluegrass, but it's very much in that kind of country bluegrass mould, and I think it's a good addition, definitely. I mean, the title track, The Same But Different, I think is quite possibly the best set of lyrics I think I've ever written, and I think that's because it's very personal. I wrote it basically about my life, about my hometown of Stafford, and my introduction to Jock's Brady's, which is the pub I've been going to for years and still go to all the time, and it was where I started performing. It was a very important part of my life, and actually the famous 3 who are mentioned are 3 regulars there, Dennis, Rick and Johnny, who supported me so much over the years, and you know, they're never drunk when they do. But it's a great place, and I've always been inspired by bands who've written, you know, about their lives, about their hometown or their lives, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write something that was really personal, and I thought about bringing the band in on it, but actually I think it works as a solo track because it is just me talking about my life. So I think definitely the best song on the album, and I think that, you know, that's why we made it the title track. Leslie's Cheesecake. Oh dear. Well, I mean, Leslie's Cheesecakes is named after Leslie, who's a regular at Jock's, the pub in Stafford. She just makes cheesecakes for people's birthdays, and they're indescribable. But from a musical point of view, this was the biggest headache. It's two tunes put together. The first is a Bulgarian rukanitsa, which is in 7/8, which is, you know, quite complex, but not overly. The second tune is one I wrote, and that's called Leslie's Cheesecakes, and that was, it just took hours to rehearse because John and Ad, had to learn this ridiculous tune. Which the problem with it is, it's not just one type of 7/8. So it's not just 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. There are random bars of 1 2 3 1 2 1 2, and interspersed. And it just took forever. And I think when they first heard it, they were just kind of like, "Oh, it's C. But we eventually got it, and like John had to play the tune on a bit of it, and he was just like a shell of a man when you finished. But it was definitely worth it. I think it's a great tune. But Rachel as well, poor Rachel, who plays the harp, she came in, and me being me, my initial instructions before we went into the studio were, oh, I just want the odd plink here and there, you don't need to practice. And then of course when we got her into the studio we wanted her to do everything, and my instructions were useless, and she uttered the immortal words, I think it's better when Dan doesn't speak. More About You is about the Jeremy Kyle show. Or it's about people who watch the Jeremy Kyle show, because they shouldn't. It's a despicable programme, just unbelievable. I just really felt the need to write about it, as one does. I mean, musically it's pretty typical me in that it's got this sort of funky banjo, you know, that kind of thing, which suits John and Ab perfectly, you know, them being funk players mainly, and Christy's great on it because she's got this sort of angry bluesy voice on the chorus, and great kind of chucky fiddle as well. I mean, the song has had a pretty mixed response when I played it live, but I actually quite like that because I think that's kind of, it's done its job then. Because I mean, there've been people who said they love it because it says exactly what they've always thought about the show, and you know, all that sort of thing. There was one reviewer in Liverpool who said that it was embarrassingly gash, which was, you know, lovely. But like I say, I think it's a worthy addition to the album. It was going to be the first track actually, but it kind of got pushed down in the end. But I do really like that one. It's a good one live as well. So the last track is an 8-minute long set of reels, which it's a long old track, but it was pretty exhausting doing because we had to do it in one take because it wasn't very easy to cut it, so it was quite a challenging one. But it's basically a couple of tunes I wrote and then a whole bunch of Irish and Scottish tunes. The last one is called the High Reel, which I heard Banjo McKenna play, and that's the reason I ever took up the banjo, so it seemed quite an appropriate ending. But yeah, I love the album. I think it's great. I'm really pleased with the result. I can't wait for people to hear it. I definitely think it's my best yet. I just can't wait to get it out there.